All right, so I think everything's running and live. Sorry, I haven't done this in probably what feels like months now. So, 500 sub giveaway update. Today I actually passed 500 subs. So since Friday, I think is when I put out the video, I was at 455, 454, something like that. We've already passed 500 in just literally 5 days. So super exciting. Thank you everybody that subbed up recently. Some updates on the light fixture that got sent out yesterday, and I should be receiving it on Friday. After that, expect an unboxing and a quick review. And once the bank tank comes home at the end of the month, so the last day in September, it'll be coming back to the house. I'll end up putting it over that tank for about a week, get some thoughts and opinions on how it does with the corals compared to what was on there before, and then give it away. So I'm thinking that I'm going to do the live drawing, and I say that tentatively because it's actually very rare that I have the house to myself without kids and animals and traffic and everything else coming through to be able to get a quiet space to do this live streaming stuff. So I'm thinking Friday, October 13th. So that'll give everybody a couple of weeks to get their video entries made. A little reminder, if you're going to do an email entry, get that in. And so no excuses of not knowing that it's coming. We got enough time with this one. And like I did with my video that I posted this morning, I'll do a quick reminder at the beginning of the video, be like, hey guys, if you haven't done your entry yet. So now we have a date. It's going to be Friday, October 13th. Not sure on the time yet. I got to plan my day accordingly with some other jobs, and we'll see how it goes. Let's look at some comments here. Hey Kay, how you doing? And Jason 1985, how's it going? Thanks for stopping in here. I know it's kind of an odd time of day, but like I said, it's rare that I get the house to myself without kids running around, so... Hey Reefer Head, how's it going? Oh, 4 a.m. Whereabouts in Australia are you? Yes, Reefer Head. I saw the post that you did on my video. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I've been on the road since, well, 8 o'clock this morning, so just barely getting back to the house. Figured I'd do this live stream and get that taken care of, and get a chance for a lot of people to pop in and say hi if they're so inclined. I don't get a chance to do these live streams very often, so I figured I'd make use of the time. Just dropped your kids off at school, huh? Yeah, we have 4 kiddos, and for us it's daycare and 2 different schools, and definitely a busy time back to school. Hey, Danny's Aquariums. And always working hard, Reefer Head. Today I actually had a consultation job. The town I live in, we have a university here in town, and there was a professor that I used to know when I worked retail at the pet shop, and he does experiments with horseshoe crabs. And he reached out to me recently saying that they were struggling with some issues as far as keeping the juveniles alive and you know, getting them to last through the experiments. So he wanted me to come down and check things out and offer some advice if I could. And it was actually, it's a little bit different than what I usually do, but it was fun. It's doing really well. See if I can get him to come up a little bit closer. They've settled in pretty good. I've noticed some split fins after last night, so I don't know if the tilapia are finally getting into it a little bit. I mean, it's not much. It's just a little bit, barely even noticeable. So the larger tilapia might be messing around with the Severum vying for dominance. So hopefully it'll work itself out. Can you burn incense around your tanks? I would probably suggest not, only because if there's any openings at the top of the tank, if the smoke settles and touches water, I've never really messed around with incense, so I'm not 100%, but I have dealt with clients having issues in the kitchen. So literally like kitchen fumes, steam from cooking, things like that, you can actually throw off the tank because particulates will get in the air and end up down in the tank. So I would probably say not. If it was me, you know, I'm overly cautious. You know, we deal with so many things in our day-to-day life that are toxic to aquariums, even in small doses. You know, it's simple things like people cleaning the front of their glass with Windex and you get some overspray in the tank. That could cause issues in a smaller tank. Room deodorizers, carpet air fresheners, you know, the powders you spread around, well, when you vac it, certain vacuums will actually kick that up into the air and then that can get into the tank. So I know it's a little bit different than incense, but I would still be concerned. Jason, you're playing around with a shrimp tank. Very cool. What kind of shrimp are you doing? Go shrimp, very cool. The japonica shrimp are also another good one that tend to be pretty hardy, that if you're not making the jump into things like the cherry shrimp or any of the other fancier species, those are pretty sturdy too. I think I'm going to have to name this guy. He's actually got quite the personality. Usually anytime I'm sitting here with my coffee, he comes over and says hi and hangs out with me. Usually I'm not one for naming fish, but might have to name this guy. Experience breeding saltwater fish? No. Usually I try to stay away from any breeding projects. My life tends to be a little bit too hectic to really focus on anything like that. I've bred clownfish accidentally in clients' tanks just simply by providing, good water quality. And, so many people have, as far as, you get them to lay eggs and take care of the eggs, and then you get the little wigglers that are still attached to whatever they laid them on. But never beyond that. Just too involved for, again, my time frame that I have to be able to play with my tanks and stuff at home. Hey Eric, thanks for joining us. And what's the weirdest request I've had for a tank install and stocking? Oh, that's a good question. Not necessarily a tank install, but this would be a weird stocking request, and more sad, unfortunately, than anything, but it's the only one that really sticks out in my mind. When I worked retail at my LFS, it was shortly after Finding Nemo came out, and I had a mother come in, and she was doing a birthday party for her kid, and a whole bunch of friends coming over, etc., and doing party favors, and she wanted a dozen bowls, and for each bowl to have a clownfish. So it took a few minutes to get her past the concept that wasn't going to work, and to try to figure out something better to do. But that was probably the one thing that sticks out in my mind the most over the years is people wanting to put clownfish in goldfish bowls. Oh, you'd be breeding your shrimp to feed your fish to save some money. Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're feeding and how much they're going to eat if you're going to be able to breed them fast enough. A lot of people tend to do guppies. Guppies tend to breed pretty quick and you can grow them out pretty fast. So that might be another option if the shrimp isn't going to work out for you. Hey Kevin, thanks for joining us. All right, Eric, can you explain how to tune LED lights properly? Oh, well, who decides what's proper, right? Okay. For me, I tend to adjust lighting for the power first. So what am I having in the tank? Is it the softies or the LPS, SPS? Is it a mixed reef? How much power can it take? And then try to dial in the color for my eye, because we're looking at the tanks every day. We want it to be visually appealing. We want the colors to really pop on the corals. So, for me, proper is enough power and riding that fine line between too much and not enough, depending, again, what you have in there. And then just making it look good, because that's the nice thing about the LEDs, especially now some of the more modern ones that have 7 different color channels, is you can really fine tune it to what you see. Me personally, I'm slightly colorblind, so I see things a little bit differently than a lot of other people. So if I'm tuning for a client, I make sure that the client is there with me and I'm adjusting it to where it looks good to them. But I'll adjust to where, all the corals or the majority of them are really fluorescing and showing the best color. You can't really go too wrong as long as you're not overdoing it on the power, and as long as you're not, not having enough power in general. So, you don't want the whites on only 5% and all the other colors blasted, because long term that's just not going to work for you. Do I have a preferred fish or biotope? Lately, because of my recent addition, I've kind of fallen back into cichlids. I really love the South American, Central American, the larger cichlids, stuff with a lot of personality. So I'm hoping that my paratilapia, they'll grow out. They're not a South American, Central American. They're from Madagascar, so they're actually an African fish. But they looked, and they get a bigger size, more like a South American, Central American fish. And it was just one that I had never gotten before. I've never raised before. They're actually rarely on the list, at least with my suppliers. So when I saw them and I had the chance to get them, I jumped on it. So that's going to be my current project. The red head, red shoulder Severum is in there. He's pretty cool. For reef tanks, I mean, I've done so many different corals, so many different tanks over the years. My love with reef tanks, though, is SPS. I've built some really killer SPS setups over the years where it was just strictly SPS, and you know, had some of them grow out. I had a show tank at work that was a 120, and it was just wall to wall, you know, grown out colonies, and I would just sell frags out of it, and that was it. So as far as reef tanks go, SPS is definitely my favorite. Do I think that 2 Kessel A80s are enough for a 40 breeder? Well, enough is kind of a vague term. I guess it depends on what you're doing for corals. So that will dictate what is truly enough. You know, I haven't played with an A80 in person yet. I've read the specs, I've heard the reviews, I've seen them over tanks. I just haven't had a build or a desire to get one for my own setup to actually play with it. So I'm not 100% on that. They sound pretty good. I mean, on paper, it sounds good. They look good over a tank. I would think, though, you're pretty safe to do almost anything as long as you have enough spread for your rock structure. You know, if you have most of your rock either directly underneath where the lights are, or the majority of the corals directly underneath where the lights are in the higher par areas, I would think you'd be fine. So softies LPS and a couple of easy SPS. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I think you'd be pretty good. I really like the Kessels. You know, I've played with a lot of the higher end LEDs. You know, I've done the Radions, I've done the Hydras, done the Kessels, and when talking strictly SPS, not anything else, but just SPS, I had the best luck with the Kessels. Whether it was that particular system that I had it on or what the deal was, I'm not sure. But I really do like the Kessels, you know, the color temperature, the shimmer, and how the corals themselves react to it. They're a nice light. So I would think you'd be pretty safe with 2 A80s over a 40 breeder. Again, just make sure you don't have any of the SPS towards the outliers, you know, out towards the edges. You know, if your light's here and your SPS is way over there, it's probably not going to be as happy as it should be. So, let's see. Outdoor ponds going with larger plant pots. What type of temperature can mollies handle? Well, are we concerned about getting too cold or too warm? I'm assuming in Australia, too cold isn't really a concern. What do I think of Orphic? Haven't played with them. I mean, there's so many companies. I know they've been around for a while. Towards the beginning, I seem to remember they had some bad press or bad publicity or something was going around with that brand, and that's what kind of steered me away from them at the time. I haven't checked out any of their current offerings. I don't want to say that I'm an LED snob, but you know, I like the big three. You know, whether you're talking about the Ecotech Marine, the AIs, or the Kessels. As far as larger setups, I tend to lean that direction if my client is able to, or if I'm doing something for myself personally. And the majority of that is my dealings with their tech support and their customer service. You know, I look at it from that end as, you know, if I sell a dozen lights, I want to know that even if one of them has an issue, I can call that company up, talk to tech support, and I get a new light out to my customer, no questions asked. So if there's any concerns with some of these less expensive companies as far as getting a hold of a body that speaks English and then getting warranty stuff taken care of ASAP, because if my client has a tank and needs that light and they want them to ship out the light, and it's a 2 to 3 week turnaround time, that's not going to work for them, and it's definitely not going to work for me. So that's kind of the reason why I've kind of leaned towards those bigger companies, you know, stateside customer service, and especially with the Ecotech Marine and AI. I mean, they're pretty local to me as far as in the country, and they get stuff out to me pretty quick if I need it. So. Too hot. Well, if you have good enough aeration in your ponds, you know, the warmer the water is, the less oxygen it holds. So every time you go up 5 degrees, it gets that much more difficult to keep fish happy and alive. You have to run some good size air pumps and air stones and make sure to keep that water aerated. You can do some form of shade over the ponds. I don't know how big a pond you're talking about. I don't know if we're talking about you know, a tub out on your porch, or, you know, something literally big in ground. If it's smaller, you can do some form of shade, and that'll help keep the temps down a little bit as well. What does my family think of my aquatic addiction and business? Well, my wife puts up with me, let's put it that way, because it is my business. You know, this is what helps pay the mortgage and keep food on the table. So she humors me on a lot of things. The 6-foot tank, she didn't really fight me on. I did have to rearrange the living room a fair amount to be able to fit it in here. You know, I had the 4-foot tank here, and we had another chair next to it, and the couch and everything else. So I had to find another spot for the chair and move the couch. And for us, we're coming up on fall, so our wood stove, which is 2 feet to my right here, is actually going to be in use, and nothing can be next to it. So whereas usually we're able to kind of tuck furniture up against it, we can't do that in the wintertime. So she puts up with it really well. My kids love it. You know, during the summertime when they don't have school, I'll rotate who gets to come with me to work, and you know, they love it. They love seeing what I do. They love seeing the tanks. My oldest, my son, he loves chatting with the customers. You know, he's got a real personality that way, so he likes it a lot. I need to get a flower horn. Yeah, there has been a couple flower horns I've seen which I like a lot. I think they're a cool looking fish. You know, you get some of the ones with the great markings on them, and obviously lots of personality. I love a fish that comes over and interacts with me when I come up to the tank. You know, even simple community fish can do that when it's feeding time. But you know, when you're sitting here and the fish comes over to check you out and be like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" That's cool to me. So I like that a lot. He wouldn't be going in this tank. If I did one, I'd have a devoted tank for him, and that's just not in the cards right at this moment. So most expensive tank that I have done. The most expensive tank that I've done is probably going to be the 500-gallon SPS Reef that I did. I have some videos on here, probably some of my earliest videos on the channel. I have a couple. I did one of the fish room, and I did one of the tank itself, and then I did a more recent one where it was a 500-gallon tank update and a quick SPS fragging guide, I think it was. That was, I mean, that was a substantial system. He picked up the tank and a fair amount of equipment used for relatively short money for what it was. But then he had to pay me and 3 guys to go break it down because it was set up and running. It was two hours, hour and a half, 2 hours away from his house. So we had to drive there, disassemble everything. It was literally full and running. So we had to disassemble everything. And it took a 17-foot U-Haul and my fish van, my red one, my older one that I had, my bigger cargo van. It took both of those, and they were full, top to bottom, left to right, front to back. Couldn't fit anything else in there to get that whole system back to his house. I ended up taking the rock and the livestock and housed it at my place, and we built the entire system from scratch. Literally, you know, everything got replumbed from square one. new sump, new skimmer. You know, he's got all the bells and whistles. He loves his gadgets. You know, that is his passion. That's his one big hobby. So if it's a piece of tech that's out there, odds are he has it. You know, he's got the Apex. He's got a larger DC skimmer with the neck cleaner. You know, his water change barrel is a 300-gallon tank from, you know, like you see up at Tractor Supply, a big stock tank with the lid on it. You know, if you check out the videos, you'll be able to see everything that's in there. He's got a huge new calcium reactor he ended up with, and he's still doing a little bit of dosing. He hasn't been terribly happy with the calcium reactor. Shocker. I warned him about it. I'm like, yeah, it's big, yeah, it's cool, yeah, it's the latest and greatest, but I'm like, I think you're going to struggle. And sadly, he did. He was dealing with some alkalinity spikes and stuff like that. So he got past that. He's actually going to be getting one of the new KH controllers, too. I forget the company now. Pacific Sun. The Pacific Sun version. He's going to end up with one of those, I think, in the next couple of months. Wife thinks that 5 tanks is practically a fish room. Well, I guess how big a room you have the 5 tanks in. If it's something, you know, closet size, it kind of counts as a fish room, but yeah, well, at least she hasn't kicked you out yet, right? That's a plus. Missed the update, can I reiterate? Okay, so the quick update on the giveaway. We blasted past 500 subs already. You know, I think I did the video on Friday to talk about the giveaway. I was at like 453, 454, something like that. Well, today, at some point during the day, I think we're at like 503. So gained quite a few subs in the last 5 days. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the contest to let everybody have a chance to enter and win Friday, October 13th. I'm hoping to be able to do a live drawing. I'll try to work my schedule around so I have some free time like I do now, and we'll do a live drawing for the giveaway. So you have, what, 2-3 weeks to make a video entry if you're going to make a video entry. Send in those emails. If you look at the entry video, the giveaway video, the original one, it does have my email in there for the contest. It's contests@tfgaquarium.com. You'll find it in there. So I'm going to do that Friday, October 13th. The light fixture shipped this week. It should be here Friday. At some point between Friday and Monday, I'm sure I'll have a chance to do a quick like unboxing and review video of it. So look for that at the beginning of next week. And the bank tank is coming home the end of September, so the end of this month. Last day of the month I'll go and get it and reset it up back here at the house, and the plan is to put that light fixture on the bank tank and do kind of a comparison. I've been doing a picture every single day that I go to feed the tank and take care of it, or if I'm just there, you know, banking anyway. So I'm going to make a time-lapse video, so you'll be able to see how the tank's progressed over the month, and you know what's changed, what hasn't, you know, how things have gotten bigger or taken over something else, because I got quite a few corals in there. So then when it comes home, I'll have it set up, and then I'll put the Aquamax light on it for a week or until whenever the giveaway is compared to when I get it back here. And that way you guys can see it over a tank, see how the corals react to it. It should be quite a bit of an upgrade. Again, the light fixture that's on there is an old, like the first gen Fluval marine LED, and it was, you know, one of those square brick ones. But honestly, I've been pretty impressed with it. I have a tricolor Acropora in there at the top, and it's actually looking great. You know, the purple is bright, the polyps are green. I have a purple Monopora cap, same thing, nice and bright, and it's actually showing growth. So it's, even though it's an older gen light and not very powerful, it's actually doing pretty well. So RT5 still the best for growing SPS. I guess for me personally, I never categorized them as the best for SPS. So I mean that, and not to say that idea is wrong. It's just for me personally, I've never really done an SPS tank with T5s. I've used T5 to supplement to get some extra color in there or some extra power, but I've never done a strictly T5 SPS tank. You know, I'm old school from the back in the days of metal halides. So my probably my best tank I ever did, I had 400 watt radiums over that 120 I was talking about. And yeah, it sucked because bulb replacement every 6 months, and even wholesale, those bulbs they don't give away. So it was expensive to run, electricity, heat, all that good stuff. So when we finally made the switch to LEDs, it was, I think they were Gen 2 Radions I ended up doing over the tank. And I noticed a lot less growth because I'm assuming there was a lot less power for the corals to make use of. The colors were good. I was still happy with the color. I was happy with the look of the tank. More fluorescence out of certain colors of SPS that I didn't have before. But I'm still kind of a diehard LED guy. You know, if I was to do a tank right now and you had to twist my arm and make me tell you what LED I would use, it would be Kessel's, hands down. The 500-gallon tank that I did, that I've been talking about, that has, oh, let me remember, 6 of the 360 WEs, and he's got 3 AP700s, so he has got a ton of LED light on there, and the SPS are really looking good, and they're growing like crazy. He doesn't have me do regular maintenance for him. He's very hands-on. He does a lot of it himself. But when I do get a chance to come up every couple of months, you know, to do bigger things for him, there's noticeable growth with the the SPS colonies. So they look good. Actually have to scroll up. There's been a lot of comments. Got on a tangent, started taking a little bit longer here. Husband is building a fish room outside, and the rest of the family have got multiple tank syndrome as well. Yep, it's if you can get your family into the hobby and, you know, just start them, just anything. Oh, that's cool, great. Here's a tank, have one. They'll soon join your addiction and you know, be part of the fun, as opposed to, oh, bought another fish, did you? So. Do I need a degree or anything to do my job? No. This started as a childhood hobby of mine that my father introduced me to, oh geez, elementary school, grade school age, and my very first tank was a 30-gallon tank, and, you know, the classic community tank, and it's just been all downhill from there. So, you know, growing up, I always had tanks in one way, shape, or form. Went to college, oddly enough, for IT, computers. It was more programming based than what I saw myself doing. I can't sit in front of a computer and type code or deal with, you know, things like that. It just wasn't for me. So I had a local pet shop here in town where I was living, and started working there, and pretty much learned everything that I needed to learn to do what I do today over the course of 14 years, you know, working there. No, sorry, 11 years. 11 years working at the pet shop. You know, I started just an entry-level employee and worked my way up pretty quickly, and basically ran the fish room for all intents and purposes, as far as doing orders, dealing with customers, dry goods, just, you know, making the business work. And I learned quite a bit hands-on doing it that way. And when you work retail and you're doing retail with, you know, aquariums, we're not even that big of an area as far as population, but day in, day out, every day that I worked was dozens of, you know, whether it was phone calls, walk-ins, emails, I was answering questions pretty much all day, every day. You know, I have a sick fish, or my tank has algae. So 11 years of troubleshooting fish tanks has kind of gotten me where I am today in terms of my knowledge and, you know, what I know. So, hey, Dave's Nano Tanks, thanks for joining. What made me start this? Now, what made me start the YouTube channel, or what got me into the hobby in general? I think I just answered that with, my dad got me my first tank back in grade school. What made me start the YouTube channel was, since I started my service and maintenance business, I interact with a lot of folks on a regular basis, clients, and getting questions on my Facebook page and stuff. But that was the part of the job that I missed the most. Actually talking with people, helping people out with their tanks, that I always loved that. I love the teaching aspect of it. So, I had friends, family, clients being like, oh, you should really, try to share your information. You're such a wealth of information. I'm like, yeah, whatever, I just play with fish tanks, But finally, I just decided to get around to making a YouTube channel. That was this really started trying, I think it was May of this year. And honestly, man, you guys have been great. It's definitely a family on here on YouTube, and you guys are all very supportive and very cool to deal with. And that was what I missed, was that interaction with other hobbyists. Because I am a hobbyist at heart. I love every tank that I have, whether it's was my son's little 10-gallon tank that I helped him out with, or my new big 180. Nano tanks, big tanks, it doesn't matter. I love them all, and I love talking with people who are excited about the hobby as much as I am. So I tend to go on a bit of a tangent when it comes to that. Hey, Hands of Stone, how's it going? How best to clean a dead clam's shell? Well, if it is completely devoid of any leftover tissue, I guess it depends. Are you trying to clean algae off? Is it coralline algae? What are you trying to clean off? And that'll help me decide what you should use to clean it. Was there ever a client that stuck out, good or bad? I'm extremely lucky that, all of my clients, I'd like to think, are good clients. I'm very blessed in that aspect, that I don't consider any of my clients, problem clients. I don't know whether it's me, as far as, interacting with them in a way that they have a better understanding of expectations, or what. I hear people have horror stories of, oh, I had this horrible, client, they just anyway, they're bad to deal with. I really don't have that issue. Everybody seems to have pretty realistic expectations after I talk to them, and I've been pretty lucky that way. So. NO3 and SPS. I get where you're coming from as far as conflicting information out there. I guess the short answer would be, there's more at play than just NO3. You can have a beautiful tank with some, like the 20 to 30 that you're talking about, and you can have an equally beautiful tank with growth and color and everything else with no measurable NO3. So it is possible to do it both ways, but everything else comes into play. That it's not just the NO3 that makes a difference. And I know that's kind of a vague answer, but I mean, SPS, they're a fickle beast. So, there's so many little minute details that can make or break SPS, and even amongst different species of SPS, that me personally, I'm of the camp that says anything over 20 is bad. I've had clients, and I've had tanks that I've helped people deal with, that if your nitrates are over 20, it's, with everything else where it should be, they tend to start having issues. They'll actually lose color, but I don't know if that has to do with, again, the other parameters in their particular system, but generally anything over 20 in my experience is no good. I don't go out of my way to add nitrates or to let nitrates build up. I'm of the camp that says you should be feeding the hell out of your fish. Make sure your fish are, plump and happy. And as a direct result, your corals are going to get fed as well. Whether it's from particulates from the food that you're feeding, whether it be frozen or pelleted, because when the bigger fish chomp up the bigger pellets, you have the little particulates that start floating around the water. The corals will actually grab that and eat that. So I don't ever really feed much in the way of true coral food. I just have people feed the hell out of their fish, and again, as a result, the corals do well. So Maxima died, remove clam, but not the dead tissue. I'd like to know how to make it sparkling clean, no algae on the shell. Okay, so you haven't removed the dead tissue. The first step would be to scrape out the shell. And to get rid of the algae, if it's just brown algae, green algae, if you do a mild bleach solution, so let's say you have a gallon container, you do like a capful or two of bleach and soak it in that overnight. In the morning, give it a good scrub, give it a good rinse. If it still looks like it's not quite as sparkling clean as you'd like it, do another capful, because at that point the bleach had been diluted down some through just sitting there. And do another soak with the bleach, and that should help out. Different from the others, good man who saves time, using your drive time for us, but drive carefully. Yes, I do. Around my area and most of the roads that I drive, again, I live in New Hampshire, Lakes region specifically, so our traffic is very, very mild. Most of the time when you see me, I try not to make videos on the highway only because the wind noise tends to pick up on the camera, so it's usually when I'm driving the back roads. These are anywhere from 40 to 50 mile an hour roads. If I end up behind another car, it's actually a surprise. Every now and again I'll still be recording when I end up in some of these small towns, but I'm not in a metro area. There's not a whole lot going on. It actually gives me something to do. I tend to keep my eyes on the road. I'd like to think more often than not, but I always do drive safe. Thank you. No problem, Eric. Happy to explain. So lucky that your job is a passion, or worried about too much of a good thing will ruin the hobby for you. At this point in my life, I don't think that's possible, to be honest. Again, I've been doing this professionally, as my career, as funny as that sounds to say out loud. I've been doing this professionally for 14 years. I've owned my own business for 3 years. And honestly, at this point, I can't imagine doing anything else. I love what I do. I love the fact that I get up every day and I get to play with fish tanks, literally. I love helping people. When I have new clients or new hobbyists, especially like here on YouTube, that are coming to me with questions, how do I do this, how can I help with that, every single day it just reinvigorates my passion for what I do. I love it. Every day is a new challenge technically. So even though it's the same tanks for a lot of my routine customers, it's still fun to see, that the fish have gotten bigger or the corals have spread, or, I need to prune stuff back in a planted tank. It's always something new. It's not the same old, same old. Every time that you give a drive speech, where will you go? Anytime I'm doing an On the Road with the Fish Guy episode, I'm actually in between clients. So my client base, trying to think of distances and times for you, most are within a 45-minute range from my house. Sometimes I'll have those that are like an hour and a half or a little bit longer for some of my farther out clients, but 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes is about average. So in that half an hour commute when I'm on these back roads, it's the perfect time to be able to fit in an episode when I'm headed to that first client. Usually I try to coordinate a couple of clients that are in the same area on the same day, obviously to save gas and time. So I'll make it either to or from when I'm going to that particular town. Thanks for stopping by, man. Favorite fish of the moment? Well, as cool as this guy is, the Severum, I really love my parrot tilapia that I ended up getting. You can't really see it in the stream. Let's see if I can feed them and see if they'll come to the front. Maybe a little bit. No, they might be difficult. Oh yeah, I think you'd be able to see them. It's hard to see them in this light, and they're not always throwing their best colors when they're chasing food around, but just a cichlid basically that's got the deep black background, and these guys happen to be the green spot variant. That their spots are almost like a green chromis green, so they're like a metallic, shiny look to them. So, oh, and my family cat decided to wake up and be loud. Hey, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Go back to bed. Go lay down. You're fine. Thanks. Alright guys, well I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Actually, I was happy to see as many of you hop on as you did, but I got kiddos coming home relatively soon, and I got to get things prepped for dinner and some other stuff around the house before they get back. So again, thanks a lot for watching guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.